So Gail, as you and I have talked about this series, the theme of empathy comes up quite a bit and what it means to build empathy while challenging preconceived notions. And I think for some of us, it may be hard to understand what it means to live and really share these landscapes with snow leopards. And your goal has always been to really bring people in and help us understand and see how similar our shared values are and joys and goals often are. And even when our lives seem to be very different from one another. And you really have done that so well through the lens of these powerful films. And I feel fortunate that Dolma and Choldan shared a piece of themselves and their livelihood with us as a way to help bridge some of these gaps in understanding. And Gail, I thought today it might be nice if you could give us a little bit more or tell us a little bit more about this series and how you help or you feel it helps achieve this cultivation of empathy with people who watch it.
Thank you, Marissa. And such a pleasure to be on here with Charu. I'm a storyteller, I'm a filmmaker, obviously. And when I joined the Snow Leopard Trust Board, I learned more about the conservation stories that were happening. And I was so struck by the work that's being done. And they're actually very positive stories, and they're working. And so I thought people should see it. I mean, to read about it is different than to see it. So I set out to share stories about the people. The cat, we're working on that all the time as an organization, like trying to learn more. But people to people, how can we share the stories of what it's like to live in landscapes that have snow leopards? And so the stories were selected in these different regions to share and show people. So Dolma and Choldan are two women that are exceptional stories to community-based conservation. And actually Tashi and Sina, same thing, great stories. And my thought was, if people understand what it's like, their challenges, maybe they would understand why it would be, what the difficulties would be in living with a snow leopard, because we have our ways of seeing things in a Western lens, and to live there is very different. So that was the whole idea behind that. And again, creating empathy, like what is it like? And I'm so grateful to, let me just say this, I'm so grateful to everybody who helped produce these films, this series, from the Snow Leopard Trust teams, which were amazing teams, amazing support, and my production teams, because they were amazing as well. And everyone really does have a heart in helping snow leopards. I loved that. I love that people showed up and worked towards saving a possibly endangered cat. So yeah. And I was also very inspired by Helen Freeman, a woman who started this organization, and I was able to interview her, and it struck me how one person can make a difference. And look what this has grown to, and her passion for snow leopards. So those were the impetus to keep moving on this project. And it was a team effort. So yeah.
I love that. Thanks, Gail. Indeed, I feel we always, even now I've run into a lot of people who knew Helen, our founder, who founded the Snow Leopard Trust in 1981, who were very affected by her story and continued careers in conservation, storytelling, biology, across the board. And even when I do talks at elementary schools, it's kind of the first example I use of one person is really able to make a difference, whether, it's at the level of the Snow Leopard Trust, a community level, throughout all facets of this organization that makes conservation work, and one person has a huge influence in that. And so her story is a very inspiring one as well. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for that. Charu, I know that Kibber was featured in this film holds a very special place in your heart. And when you were first starting in your career, you spent a lot of time in Kibber living with community, listening and learning for over 2 years before even mentioning conservation, before the word conservation even came up, as you build a foundation of really informed trust and cultivating those robust relationships. And then once those were really strong, and only then would you broach the concept of conservation with solution-based ideas that were really rooted in community, which still carry on to this day. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a recent visit that you made to this region where you not only screened this film with Dolma and Chandan, which I think is incredible. We have some great photos of that screening that we will share after this meeting as well. But you also met with some of our other long-term community partners and left with an unprecedented number of snow leopard sightings, wild snow leopard sightings. During your 9 days spent in the field, you saw 4 or 5, I believe, individual snow leopards on 11 different occasions. And I just want to compare this to the fact as you were starting your career in conservation, it took 10 years of field visits before catching a glimpse of this ghost of the mountain. And these increased sightings, although they are anecdotal, really are a testament to the impacts of the conservation work by you and our partner communities. So I thought it might be nice for you to tell us a little more about your connection to Kibber and what makes this place so special to you.
Thank you, Marissa. Great to be here. Thank you, Gayle. Like Marissa, every time I watch this film, it just feels so special, partly because it's so beautiful and partly because Kibber is such an important part of my own life and my journey, both professionally and personally. Yeah, I mean, today it's one of the hotspots for people to go see and photograph snow leopards. It's like really big on snow leopard tourism right now, this region, Kibber and surrounding villages, which of course brings its own set of challenges, but it's just an incredible story of how what used to be seen as a pest till 25 years ago. I mean, today it's just such a valued resource for people, as well as something that they feel is to be cherished and protected. So, but Marissa, I mean, that is that's the power of conservation when local and indigenous communities decide to lead it. So that's what you're seeing in this region today. And as far as yeah, my own initial days are concerned, yeah, this place wasn't great for snow leopards. If at all, they were killed in this region and surrounding regions. But as in relation to the conservation approach, look, I was growing. I grew along with this conservation program, along with the people of Kibber, professionally and personally, like I said. And so this wasn't a part of really any strategy that I would first spend time with them. And, I spent like 4 years living there, and conservation happened organically. Mm-hmm. And some things that I learned there, now they have become lessons for us in conservation, and we are teaching other people and training other people as well. But it was just, the initial part was really about, I was embedded in the community, learning about them, their ways of life, their values and things like that. And along the way, conservation started. So yeah, it was organic and not really part of the strategy. Of course, now it's a significant, important part of our strategy in engaging both ethically, respectfully, and empathetically with communities for conservation. So yeah, thank you. And Kibber always stay very special for me. I go there every year, and it's always like going home. So thanks.
I love that. Absolutely. I know I've said this, I think, in some other conversations that we've had, but whoever said patience is a virtue, I think, was a fan of snow leopards, because it is one of those things that builds, and even seeing them, studying them, learning about them, and just playing that long game is so important. And so yeah, it's nice to hear a little bit more of a background of your time there as well. Yeah, I can open up now. I did bring my laptop just in case, so I can see the Q&As. We have a whole setup here, many different screens. So if you want to utilize the Q&A, I'd love to open it up. If anybody else has questions for Gayle and Charu, you can either put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Marissa, do you have the photos of Kibber with Charu? Can we show those?
I could pull those up with him with Dolma and Chandan too, watching the film. Yeah. I can pull those up and share my screen as these questions are coming in. Absolutely. Somebody is asking what time of year this film was filmed during.
2 times of the year. One was in the summer, which is a very busy time, and Charu can speak to that. And then one was in the winter. So we had a cinematographer go and take it twice. He went twice.
Okay.
So this is I love this photo as a filmmaker, to go back and see the people these 2 women who shared their stories and were, willing to be filmed, and then for them to see themselves. I just love this.
I love this photo too. Just the smiles. And you like feel, I mean, this is one of those pictures that just it exudes an emotion and a feeling and really captures every single thing that this story is about. It's so special. And I think having that connection, right? I mean, and Gayle, you've mentioned this before too. I think when you're filming communities, again, like our conservation programs are rooted in community, and so are these projects, right? Like we want them to be a part of it and see it's not something that's filmed and goes to the public and they never see it again, right? It's like showing their lives captured in a way that feels authentic to them and something that they can share with others as well. So that's one of my favorite photos. We have a question from Lynn, and her 12-year-old son Mateo would like to ask, where is the best place I could go to try to see a wild snow leopard? It is a great question, one that I would like to know as well.
Kibber.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of places in India, Kibber and Spiti Valley being one of them. Ladakh is another place where, and slowly we are trying to build a program with some collaborators in Kyrgyzstan as well, in the Tian Shan Mountains. But at this point in time, I think Spiti Valley is particularly the regions around Kibber and further north in Ladakh, they are amongst the best places. But the only thing is that if there's just so much to see in these landscapes and experience beyond snow leopards. But if seeing snow leopards is an important part of, your motivation, then I would say 2 things. One is, like Marissa said, patience. But the other thing is that they're much easier to see in winter. In summer, their prey gets more dispersed, higher up in the pastures, snow leopards are harder to spot. But in winters, they are more sort of concentrated in the relatively lower areas, at least in this region. And also the tourism part, a very, very important part of the prevailing tourism is for these community members, especially a few of the younger community members who are really well trained to actually go and spot those snow leopards, because it's not easy, because they are doing this in sub-zero temperatures, getting out early in the morning in very cold winters. But once they are able to spot snow leopards, they're cats, and they like to just hang around and laze around through most of the day, so they don't move much. So then the spotters are able to inform the others in the village, and then the people who've been waiting to see snow leopards, they're able to kind of trek there and actually see them. So that happens in winter. In most places, you can plan kind of snow leopard sightings and tourism only happens in winter. Summers, you have to be really lucky to be able to see a snow leopard. I mean, I've probably seen snow leopards in summer 2 or 3 times in my entire 25 whatever years. And winters, of course, you lose count the number of times you're able to see them.
And Charu, the photo, I love your background image is my favorite, but that is a photo of one of the cats that you saw during your recent visit to Kibber. Is that correct? From Prasenjit?
This is Prasenjit's photo. Prasenjit's a dear friend and National Geographic photographer. We watched many snow leopards together, including this one. Like it was inside the ice cave and it moved around. It's really brilliant. But this was from February 2022, last year.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. We have a question also in the chat wondering what the primary how communities get electricity in Khyber, or the primary source for electricity.
Yeah, so Himachal Pradesh is one of the Himachal Pradesh province of India where Spiti Valley and Khyber are located. It is one of those places that have for a long time been quite ahead in electricity generation. It's mostly hydroelectricity. And so there are smaller hydel power stations within Spiti Valley, but they are not enough to supply the entire valley. So they also get some supply from other parts of the state, but the state generates surplus hydroelectricity, which it supplies to others as well. But, I mean, most of the year there is electricity, but especially, extremes of winter, there will be days still when there's no electricity because the wires get broken and stuff. So it is a challenging environment to live in.
Yeah, an adventure.
Mhm.
We have a question from Matt Charu, who's asking how many villages like Khyber, Ule, and others are there among snow leopard habitats, and how do we continue to share the story with other villages that can implement some similar policies?
Yeah, great question. So currently, our teams and our our network, we work with about 150 to between 150 to 160 communities like Khyber's, distributed across five of the key snow leopard range countries. And our communities themselves are actually protecting currently about 150,000 square kilometers. We do it in square kilometers, so forgive me if you do it in square miles, you'd have to do a conversion. But about 150,000 square kilometers of snow leopard. They're protecting snow leopards themselves. The communities are protecting it over 150,000 square kilometers of prime habitat. How we engage with others is, again, a great question. I mean, what we typically, when you start in one village, obviously there's, the news travels, word of mouth, and so on. But what our teams do is that we, without necessarily trying to implement programs, we have a landscape approach to conservation because snow leopards are landscape species. We cannot be just protecting them in and around, let's say, Khyber village, because the same snow leopard can move. Every individual snow leopard has a home range, of about the females of about 100 square kilometers, males about 2 times or more that size. So they really sort of move across landscapes. So we cannot have like a very, communities are our unit, of course, but we have to have a landscape focus because the same snow leopard that is using the pastures of Khyber can move to a different community's pasture, which may be more hostile and not so friendly. So we would have to, therefore, long back, about 10, 12 years back, we made a strategic decision that we had to start focusing on landscapes. So our work, for example, our teams partner with multiple villages across Spiti Valley. Similarly, so we have in Kyrgyzstan, we have the kind of landscape focus in the higher Tian Shan Mountains. So we multiple communities there. And so similarly in Mongolia and so on. Typically, it's by, we are visiting communities, building connections, and the most important thing is to be there to just discuss things with them, not just conservation, but other aspects of their life, the challenges, the opportunities that they face and they value. To definitely be there for communities when they face a challenge. There might be a community where there's suddenly an instance where a snow leopard has entered into a corral and killed 25 livestock in one night. And especially when instances like this happen, it can be really, really damaging, both for conservation and particularly for the people, both, financially and emotionally and psychologically. So you've got to be there to support them. So so it's a combination of things, just general interactions until there is enough trust so that we can start actually implementing and co-designing programs and implementing programs with them. So that trust building phase, that's something that we take very seriously. But also if in any of our landscapes that we know about, if there's suddenly an incidents like this, and our team, then we have a kind of an emergency response and we go to support people. And typically what we hear is like, we, there's not a criticism of any authorities or governments or whatever, but typically the response is, look, we were in so much distress, and where is our government? Where are people to support us? It is you who actually are working on snow leopards, that you are here to support us or at least hear us out. So I think that it's a lesson for everybody here, not just for conservationists, that when people are in distress, you've got to be there for them. And then you can really establish long-term and more resilient partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually a great segue into, we have another question from Flavia, who is wondering just more about your process and just kind of building on those lessons. If somebody's wishing to build something similar to other areas. So I thought it might be, we might not have time to go into it too deeply, but it might be a great time to talk about the partners principles, and we could link to that in our site as well, which is something that you've kind of built, along with our partners as we've gone on this journey, that address sort of the tenets of conservation and ways to apply those to other programs across the range. So if you want to talk, I know talking briefly about partners principles is hard to do, but it's such an important, I think, takeaway of this.
Yeah, sure. Flavia, so we have a training program. It's called Partners Principles, and essentially it is a training program in an immersive kind of training program, not a very prescriptive one, but more based on experience sharing and so on. But it's a training program in how to engage with communities effectively and ethically for conservation. And so that's a training program that Snow Leopard Trust used to offer. But over the last one and a half years, we've actually started conservationists from around the world, grassroots conservation leaders from around the world are coming together, and we formed an alliance, a new alliance, which is going to be announced in the next few weeks, in the beginning of November. And it's called the Ethical Conservation Alliance. And this is an alliance where conservationists from around the world are coming together, and jointly we are offering things like training programs and resources, etc., for people, for conservationists, and for others who might be interested in more what we call ethical conservation. And you might be aware that the history of conservation across the world has not been very ethical, and it's been very top-down. It's been often called fortress conservation. It has come at a huge expense, at a huge cost to local and indigenous communities who've lost their lands, who've lost their lives, who've lost their sites of cultural importance and heritage, ostensibly because we wanted to conserve, or part of humanity wanted to conserve nature and wildlife. So we want to collectively change the paradigm of how conservation is done around the world. And we actually have a great start in these incredible people who have come together. And now we're kind of, putting our resources together. But Partners Principles training would be a good way to go.
Absolutely. Gayle, we had somebody ask, they recognized the narrator's name and was wondering who the narrator of the films were.
Swati, and I will really not do a good job of pronouncing her last name, and I apologize. Swati, and it's I'm gonna just totally not get it right, so I'm not even gonna try. Her, I have a connection to her through she's a filmmaker as well, and she is from India, and she's a passionate wildlife advocate. Her husband is Craig Foster, who did the My Octopus Teacher film.
Oh, yeah.
She's a part of that film as well. And I asked her to narrate this, and I was just so thrilled. She said yes, and adore her work as well, as she is as I say, big advocate for wildlife. Yeah, that's
awesome.
the story. Yeah.
She did a great job.
And let me help you out. Here.
You say-
Thank you, Charu. I'm so embarrassed.
Swati Tyagarajan.
Oh.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, she did an incredible job.
She did.
I think we have time for a couple more. So this these are two questions that kind of build it together. So we have somebody who also went to Ladakh with Voyager expeditions, which is incredible, and saw forest sightings of snow leopards in 8 days, and was wondering too, our plans kind of improve connectivity to Khyber and accommodation availability, our plans into Tajikistan. And that kind of built into another question about commenting on the political situation and stability with partnering in places like Kyrgyzstan and other nations, and how SLT helps to promote that stability and good governance in its partnering in range nations, and how these two elements are vital to wildlife conservation efforts. So again, not an easy thing to consolidate in a couple of minutes, but might be, Charu, if you could speak a bit about our global snow leopard ecosystem protection program, GSLEP.
So yeah, thank you. Great question. And first, about the quick response about the infrastructure, etc. So look, we have not done a lot of the tourism development in Khyber happened because of people's own entrepreneurship. When there is the snow leopards actually became, more, sightings became more frequent and so on. And people have actually, the community members have actually collaborated with, partnered with outfitter groups, etc. And that's how the tourism work started. So in some sense, that's actually fantastic, because, that's not something that we had to do, but it became organically happened once the area became good for snow leopards. But we are, currently actually, even at this point, there are series of training programs going on. There's a whole bunch of homestays and guest houses now locally in Khyber, for example, and Chichim, one of these neighboring villages. And so we actually have experts out there right now. There's trainings, ongoing trainings in nature interpretation, and which is going on right now. But very soon, last week of October, trainings are planned in hospitality, sustainability, and so on. So we have, again, people from the hospitality industry, trainers from the hospitality industry actually going and training people. We've helped them organize into these associations. We've helped them build associations, tourism associations, so that, these values of course, great visitor experience, but at the same time, values of sustainability and conservation can be strengthened. Kyrgyzstan, again, it's been at one pilot has happened. So if there are, and the Snow Leopard Trust itself does, those are a slightly different kind of experience. We don't do generally tourist experiences, but some of our donors, we do take them out to the field on these special trips. Where they're able to work really closely with, interact very closely with our field team of conservationists and scientists. Coming back to the other part of your question about this is, the whole world right now. I mean, tell me one peaceful part of the world. It's just such a mess, and it just keeps getting messier and messier. You're seeing what's going on even, as we are talking in the Middle East now again. So that's a reality that we have to live with. The snow leopard range countries, the 12 countries where snow leopards occur, now they also, many countries do not share the best of relationships. But since 2013, we have been able to establish, together with other partners, establish an intergovernmental alliance. Sorry, my cat, my professional life as well as my personal life is ruled by cats. Now my cat is harassing me. Sorry. But sorry, so in 2013, we were able to help establish an intergovernmental alliance called the Global Snow Leopard and Ecosystem Protection Program, whose steering committee is comprised of environment ministers of all the 12 snow leopard range countries. And through that alliance, we facilitate a whole bunch of things, but it is an alliance of governments. and we facilitate better exchange of best practices. We facilitate trainings, as well as that is the platform using which we can actually, and conservationists can interact closely with governments. And what's really nice about that program is that we have people who don't, government representatives, politicians, bureaucrats from countries who might not share the best of relationships with each other and who might even have armed conflicts with each other. They still, despite that, they come together to discuss snow leopard conservation. They talk to each other and so on. So, I think conservation in general and snow leopards in particular can have that, um, uniting kind of impact and a role, and we really need that in the more and more in the world we live in. So yeah, I hope that helps answer. It is part of the question, but it's a complex issue, and I can't do justice to it.
No, that's perfect. It's perfect. Somebody was glad that it was just your cat, thought that maybe there was an earthquake happening, Charu. So I'm glad it's just cats ruling, which they do. So
yeah. She is more than an earthquake when she's angry. So.
I know. It's one and the same. And I think for our last question, Charu, somebody was asking if you could, and this will kind of help build, so we have some call to actions at the end before we sign off at 11, but if you could explain the relationship between protecting the snow leopard and protecting the third pole, which is something that you might have seen kind of throughout some more recent communications, and how those two things are tied together.
Yeah, the first thing I think is that people have not recognized, generally, when I say people, in general, humanity, even within snow leopard range countries, I think the snow leopard habitats and what we call the third pole, because of the huge amount of snow and glaciers that they hold, I think their values have been not as much appreciated, especially in the modern times. And these places are generally looked at as being more marginal. They have a low human population density, so even government priorities are not very focused in these landscapes. But I think one of the important reasons to call them the third pole is because in the North Pole and the South Pole, particularly in the context of climate change, are receiving much more attention, and which is of course very appropriate. But then this region is actually thought to be warming at 2 times the average. The third pole region is thought to be warming at twice the average rates of warming across the northern hemisphere. So the snows are melting, the glaciers are retreating. The region holds actually provides fresh water to a third of humanity across the globe. So and has a really a huge amount of ecological security and sustainability, and that we derive from these landscapes. So it's really important that we're able to recognize them much more. And what better symbol for the third pole than the snow leopard? The snow leopards also are getting affected by climate change. We're still trying to understand how exactly. They are a resilient animal. Sure, they're tied to the high mountains and the cold landscapes, but they occur, even between summer and winter. They are able to, there's extreme ranges of temperature, etc. So we think they are resilient, but the indirect impacts of climate change and globalization, how people, how communities, how we respond to globalization and climate change, that's going to affect snow leopards. Now, for example, to give you an example, with this increasing frequency and intensity of extreme climatic events, Mongolia is seeing a greater frequency of what they call dzud, which is extreme climatic, extreme snow late in spring, and because of which there's huge damage to livestock, and particularly on, in a economy and especially a lifestyle that is so livestock dependent. If you suddenly lose your entire herd of livestock, your entire source of subsistence, you might be, a cashmere farmer, your livelihood is gone. And we're actually seeing instances of people losing livestock to extreme climatic events, and then getting more involved with mining, both legal as well as illegal mining, which actually permanently damages habitats, causes pollution, and is a huge threat to the sustainability of the region. Particularly when it happens in important snow leopard habitats, that's a real cause for concern. So it's really these kind of secondary effects we think of climate change and globalization in the third pole that are going to be impacting snow leopards. But these are still issues. There are a whole bunch of research issues as well that we're trying to grapple with, trying to understand where the vulnerabilities lie for snow leopards, as well as for communities, as well as for women. Are they going to be, and we think they are going to be disproportionately affected by these changes. It's a complex issue, but it is something that I think we all need to play our role in, promoting awareness about around the world.
Absolutely. Well said. We covered a lot of very layered, complicated issues in a really relatable and understandable way. And again, if people have follow-up questions, like please feel free to reach out. I'll have John put my email in the chat, but you can send me an email and I'll make sure it gets to the right person. So I want to give a huge thank you to both Gayle and Charu for being with us here today. John, to help us moderate this chat and play the video, and sharing your time, heart, and expertise and passion for these cats. And a huge giant snow leopard shout out to everyone who made these films possible, and especially all of you for being here and being part of this story to protect this incredible species. A theme that also came up a lot as we were planning this event was from the heart. And so I really do hope that this story and this film was received from our heart to yours. And thank you all for opening your heart to snow leopard conservation as well. International Snow Leopard Day is coming up on October 23rd. And so we have a lot of exciting ways for you to be involved. John will drop some links in the chat as I talk about some of the different ways that we can celebrate and make an impact. And these will be, and we'll send out a follow-up email as well that has all of these. So if you can't click on them right now, that's okay. We will definitely be following up. So we recently launched a petition asking political leaders of snow leopard range countries to take action and protect snow leopards by prioritizing climate adaptation programs, as Charu was mentioning, across the habitat. So there is a link that you can sign the petition. It just takes a couple of clicks, and share that with your friends and family as well. That would be incredible. We have a fall sale going on in honor of Snow Leopard Day, featuring the handcrafted items that our community partners make in snow leopard habitat. And we'll be launching some new products later this week. So please stay tuned. It will be a lot of the handicrafts as well as our 2024 calendar, which is always very highly anticipated every year. Some of these beautiful photos that you see can be on your wall every day of the month. We've also just yesterday launched an online auction that has over 40 unique items, or nearly 40 unique items, many of which come from snow leopard habitat, and all proceeds go directly back into our conservation programs. If you're not already, make sure you are on our e-newsletter. We send those out once a month, and it really has a lot of these different field updates and exciting things and ways that people can get involved. So that's something to definitely make sure you're signed up for if you are not already. I saw some notes coming up in the chat about where they can watch this film again. So as we mentioned earlier, this Dolma and Chandan's story is the third episode of the Living with Snow Leopard series. So there are two other films that feature Saina from Mongolia and the story of Tashi from India that focuses on our livestock insurance program. And so those are available on our website as well. And we will upload the trailer for this film right now is up there. So we will replace that with the full film. And so you can watch all three of those on our website at any time. They've won multiple awards and are just so incredible. So please do share that link with others who you think might want to learn this story and be part of this.
And that's already been updated. So all three videos are live.
Thanks, John. Look at that on top of it. I love it. And of course, you're welcome to make a direct donation on our secure website that help bolster the work so our partners like Dolma and Shandong can continue to coexist with snow leopards. Your contributions and you being here today is really instrumental in our mission, and we really thank you for your steadfast commitment to protect snow leopards and support ethical conservation practices. So really grateful for all of you. This has been such a pleasure. I just have been looking forward to this all month. I'm kind of sad it's over, but we will do more. And please, again, reach out with any questions. We are here to answer them, and we would not be here without your support. So on behalf of Snow Leopards, and I know our entire team here, I just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Yeah, thank you, Gayle. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
That was wonderful.
Oh, thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
So lovely. Here.